One dies as one lives. Mahatma Gandhi walks into his garden for a press conference. He gets shot, and at the moment he's shot, all he says is Ram, just the name of God. He just has time. He says the name of Ram as he goes. Because he's so already with God through his life's work that the moment of transition of body to not body is just another moment in which he's with God. Really, the essence of a dying retreat becomes the essence of a living retreat. And then the question is how you use the experiences, the moment-to-moment experiences of your life as a way to become optimally conscious, to be optimally in the Spirit or with God. And so then you start to examine the various components of life in order to bring them into this same awareness that we're just talking about now. What happens to a relationship when you understand that the meaning of the events and the experiences of your life is to awaken or to live in the Spirit or to be fully conscious or with God or in your own true being? Ultimately, everything must go into this same stew, and you have relationships in order to awaken. And you have relationships in order to live in the Spirit and to be with God, and to awaken out of the illusion of your own separateness. And that's the real essence of relationship. It's the vehicle for awakening out of the illusion of separateness. And when you understand the integration of this higher wisdom with the daily life events, you begin to see how relationships are a form of devotional or dualistic. They're a form of yoga. They're a form of coming into union, which is what yoga means. Now, what you see in other human beings is very, very much affected by your motivation. They're a form of coming into union, which is what yoga means. Now, what you see in other human beings is very, very much affected by your motivation and by your perception of yourself and by your own preoccupations. If you are busy, if I say to you, who are you? And you say, I am somebody who is dying, then you will tend to see other people in terms of who's living and who's dying. If you are somebody who doesn't like your body image, you are inclined to look at other people's body image. If you are somebody who is preoccupied with your own personality, with your own depression, for example, you're inclined to look at other people in terms of their happiness. Why can't I be happy like she is? If you have a very judging mind in which you're judging yourself continually, then you see other people as judging you all the time. You tend to project outward what is familiar to you, which is the way you look at the universe. You assume other people are looking at the universe the same way. So that if you are preoccupied with your sexual desire system, and that colors your perception because it locks you in all the time, you will see other people as thinking that too. And by the same token, if you think that you are God and you see God in yourself, that's what you'll see in other people. rather than in the immediate experience that exists between two human beings. For example, if you experience yourself as being a wise person and somebody else as being unwise, and you're caught in that label, then even if they say something wise, you can't hear it. If you need to be helpful, then you need people who are helpful. If you need to be sadistic, you need people who are masochistic. When you look at the world in terms of this kind of symbiosis at the personality level, you see this incredible game going on of unconscious human relationships. There's a comic book called the Doctor Strange series. And in the Doctor Strange series, the way you see it in the comic book section is people come down the street and they have these huge nets coming out of their head. And these nets are full of statements like, this is who I am, this is who you are, this is how it is, this is who I am, this is who you are. So somebody goes down the street like this is who I am, this is who you are, this is how it is. Somebody else goes down, this is who I am, this is who you are, this is how it is. Somebody else goes down the street like this is who I am, this is who you are, this is how it is. If you elude, and that's the horror, the way the mind creates these models and then seduces everybody into them. Because you feel secure in the model, but secure in your prison room, and that's the horror when the door is open and you don't walk out because you're too secure in the prison room. Out and you see other individuals in terms of there's a Leo, or there's a Taurus, or there's a Sagittarius. That's another individual difference matrix based on your astral body. And those are all the ways in which you can... But if you see other beings, when you look into someone else's eyes and you see that there's just another being looking back at you, awareness. And that bit of awareness has around it all of this stuff, which is the packaging, or the karmic manifestation, or its predicament. And all these individual differences are like packagings around it, just like, and you don't confuse the contents with the container, or the containers, as this case may be. But if you confuse yourself with your containers, you're going to confuse other people with their container. If you are busy thinking that you are primarily man or woman, if you primarily think you are sick or well, if you primarily think you're old or young, if you primarily think you're a mother or a child, then you are that's the reality in which your mind is working, and that's what you create for everybody else around you, and that ends up in judging. This person is a better mother, or better, or this, or less good, or taller, or shorter, or darker, or lighter, or gooder, or eviler, or whatever your polarities are. Or darker, or lighter, or gooder, or eviler, or whatever your polarities are. Primarily to look and see in another person that other thing that's just like you means that you can look at the individual matrices as the karmic unfolding, and then you can get into a space where you do not judge another being. You may judge their actions, but you don't judge the being. And that is the realm in which unconditional love can exist. Through the relationship in order to arrive at the place where there is one awareness but there are two bodies, two personalities, two astrologies. In other words, you work until the relationship exists where there is simultaneously the one and the two. And you use the two to arrive at the one. And it gets so that just as these two hands are clapping, and there is one mind and these two hands, and this hand isn't busy being the left hand and this busy being the right hand. They are just two hands doing their part to make the clap occur. So there is one awareness and two people. But if you confuse yourself with your containers, you're going to confuse other people with their container. If you are busy thinking that you are primarily man or woman, if you primarily think you are sick or well, if you primarily think you're old or young, if you primarily think you're a mother or a child, then you are that's the reality in which your mind is working, and that's what you create for everybody else around you. Now, to use a relationship that way, that is the process of what I started the lecture by saying, using relationships in order to awaken to God. To see who the other person is, see who you are, you yourself are, through the relationship. For a relationship to do that requires a tremendous amount of consciousness and space and meditation and intent. And it is hard work, as most of you who have ever been in intense interpersonal relationships have found out. Because in that one, in order to realize the oneness of the two, every bit of identification you have with the two has to be given up. You've got to give up the two into the one, and then from the one you will be the two. It's the difference between I am a man versus I am God that is being a man. You go from an identity with the two into an identity with the one, and out of the identity with the one comes the manifestation into the two. It's a cycle that has to go in. But what happens is, as the two go towards the one, you are literally dying into love, you are dying into awareness, you are dying into the oneness of it. And that oneness is called love, or it's called awareness, or it's called truth. Because in that one, in order to realize the oneness of the two, every bit of identification you have with the two has to be given up. The difference between I am a versus you go from an identity with the two into an identity, and because of our attachment, our karmic attachment to our separateness, when a marriage or a relationship starts to work too well, we freak. And what you usually see in relationships is they end up being one person is running away, pulling back, and the other person is opening. I love you, why aren't you there for me? And the other person's pulling back. Then, after the other person's been like this for a while, they say, well, screw you. And they start to pull back. And the minute they pull back, the other person starts to remember how much they love them. And they start to go. And you see the dance going like this, and it doesn't really matter who's playing what part. It's just so that it's a conspiracy to keep from falling into love. Because when you fall into love, you cease to be. tell. We freak. And what you usually see in relationships is they end up being one person is, and the whole process is opening it up once again. And the way it is opened up is by wanting to have it open so bad that the two of you are willing to deal with the truth of the pain and the truth of the confusion and the truth of it all and stay in it. If you and I agree we will be us together, we're going towards the one, we are us. But then I start to have, say, sexual desires for someone else. And I don't want to tell you that because it might hurt you. It would hurt you and you'd get furious. So I say, well, I won't tell you that. The minute I do that, I have set up a part of my mind which is now closed off to you. And every time I am in that part of that mind, you must become an object. You are no longer us. You must be her or him. Somebody's taking care of you. And you really are a little angry at the way they're doing it, or you wish they would stop, or you wish they'd do something, or you'd like to ask them to do it, but you don't want to tell them because you fear you'd be an imposition. So the result is you say, oh, well, I won't tell them that. I'll just keep it inside myself. People don't understand how sensitive relationships are and how much living spirit demands living truth and how volatile living truth is. And what price you are paying for keeping it nice. The niceness between somebody who is being a patient and somebody who's being a nurse. The niceness between a husband and a wife. The niceness between a parent and a child. And I'll tell you, we cannot afford so much niceness because we are dying in it. And most of you, if you are like me, starve to death in that environment because you're so hungry for a living truth in human relations. So when you are ready, what you offer, when you want to be out of your own prison cell, what you offer other human beings is the work you do on yourself. And the work you do in yourself is to come to the point where you are no longer identified with your individual differences. So all of your stuff and all of your stuff of your fears and aggression, sexuality and embarrassment and all that stuff is connected with those matrices of individual differences. You're no longer identified. You want them, you can have them. You want the fact that, I'm perfectly willing to tell you that I have hang-ups, that I'm insecure, that I'm paranoid,